coming down!
Come and play with us.
We're all work and no play, because by your demand, we're talking movies. We're talking The Shining, starring Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, and Danny Lloyd. Written by Dan Johnson and Stanley Kubrick, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Some places are like people, Kris. Some shine, some don't.
Here's Johnny.
Like, you're so fucking predictable. That's why I didn't do it.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? As we round out our October, we're going to be talking about a film that needs no introduction, but it's going to get one anyways. The 1980 film by the classic, undeniably world-class filmmaker, Stanley Kubrick, The Shining. All right, Scott, horror expert, take us away.
Well, I think first we need to talk about the two elephants in the room. One, I loved how you corrected yourself there and your little mix-up with the classic, and it just kept on going. That, amazing.
One take wonder, baby.
The second,
one take wonder.
More things than one. The second elephant in the room. Obviously, this movie was selected by our audience on our Instagram. It got the most votes of movie to discuss on our podcast. So I just want to know, why do our listeners hate Stephen King so much? Because he loads this film. I'm pretty sure there's a restraining order he has against this film that it can't be played within 50 yards of him.
Yeah, he really dislikes this film.
But yeah, in terms of the film itself, now I watched this actually last night, and I watched it with my 10-year-old son. He calls it the boring, because he's like,
or the shinning, as they called it on The Simpsons. Ugh, do you want to get sued, boy?
Yeah, he's like, Dad, there's only one kill in this movie. It's not even a horror movie. And then trying to explain to a 10-year-old that, if there's lots of killings, that's normally a slasher genre horror film, and there's different kinds of horror films. And he's like, no, Dad, there's only one kind of horror film. And
you were like,
somebody
also,
killing.
this was old-timey days, and they really hadn't got the body counts up yet.
Yeah, and I think what I wanted to discuss as well, your introduction alone kind of speaks merits to this film, right? You literally just gave credit to Stanley Kubrick, not to Nicholson, not to Duvall, none of the actors, none of the cinematographer, and it's funny, researching this film too, even Nicholson's upset with this film. Duvall says it's the worst film she's ever made.
I mean, she doesn't have a really great fucking filmography, let's be honest here. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, but in terms of it, everything with this film is giving credit to Kubrick, and that's it, and nothing else, right? And that's what I think is kind of interesting in terms of it. A film in whole, and you're in the industry or whatever. It's
I'm a budding young filmmaker.
Yeah, well, we'll take out the young part. But a midlife crisis filmmaker.
Is there any other kind, Kathy?
No, there's not actually. But it's a whole. It's a group effort. Do you know that scene in the, I guess, lobby when Nicholson and Duvall's talking, and he's literally giving her the ground rules of
where are you talking, when he's typing, when he comes in, he's like, when I'm in here typing, or actually whenever I'm in here, that scene?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you know Nicholson wrote that scene? he literally had the same scenario that happened during his divorce before this film, and he relayed like what he thought Jack, the character of Jack, would be going through in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally wrote it based off of his whole story of what actually took place, but no one gives him credit for it technically, right? It's all Kubrick. And in terms of what I was saying with Duvall, that the scene, like, you know, this film it's in the Guinness Book of World Records, right?
Yeah, for longest takes on one scene. I think it's 123.
127 for that one scene
okay.
of her with the baseball bat going up the stairs just before, you know, he gets clocked.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in terms of what she was saying, like the heart, like people are hardcore on Fincher because he's like meticulous and be like, okay, we'll go another scene. Just imagine doing 127 takes walking up a fucking set of stairs.
Yeah, and I mean, this film is definitely, and Kubrick has been criticized specifically for this film and his treatment of Shelley Duvall because of the multiple takes, basically trying to make her emote real fear and stress by putting her in real stressful and fearful conditions. Now, the reason, you know, this is considered like Stanley Kubrick's film and nobody else's, not Stephen King's, not Jack Nicholson, is that he is probably one of the quintessential directors when you think of like auteur cinema. The other one would be like Hitchcock. I mean, there's definitely other people, but like those two definitely come up as people who are considered, they control every aspect, every minutia of the filmmaking process. Hold on. Because I take a very different approach. I think that it is collaborative. Everybody on a film set is working together to trying to get the best film out. But Kubrick was notorious for just like take after take after take. He was in the editing room. I mean, he famously basically said like he shoots film. I'm going to paraphrase. He shoots film in order to do the edit. As far as he's concerned, the film comes out in the edit. So that's why when you talk about his films, it's often just like it's a Stanley Kubrick film. Like that idea of like the film belonging to the director. He's one of those guys that set that kind of standard, right or wrong. Anyway, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, just in terms of in cinema history as well, late 60s to very early 80s as well, that's when they got out of
the new Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Where, you know, it got out of the studio film. You're going to go watch a Warner Brothers movie, and it became a director's film, right? 100%. Where you're going to go watch a Kubrick, and now we're in the star genre, where you're going to go watch it for the actor, right? So I get what you're saying 100%, right? And don't get me wrong, like obviously, like Kubrick's probably in every like film school or anything like that. He's probably in like the conversation for top 2, top 3 in terms of directors, right?
Sure, definitely Western directors, like people like Europe, North America, 100%. Yeah. I mean, film historian Michael Clement said that Kubrick's films are considered by most film historians to be among the most important contributions to the world of cinema in the 20th century. That's a pretty good list to be on. You know, I mean, that's a pretty good declaration.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the thing with this film that I think in terms of choices, I guess you're going to want to say he made, right? Everything's medium to wide view filmed, right? There's very little close-ups in this movie.
There's only like there's not a lot of extreme close-ups. There's medium shots and stuff like that. I mean, the one shots and stuff that are framed out, like they often use like an upward angle. I mean, I think they use some Dutch angles as well, like pitch to the side or whatever. Anyway, go ahead. Opposed to like, they're not using. They do a lot of like cinematic shots though, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's interesting. Like, especially if this is like, would you consider this like kind of like the haunted house genre? Like in terms of horror, like what would you consider it?
So
Because
that's interesting. Actually, I'm going to use my quote here. So Germ Spinelli of Real Views said that as a ghost story and adaptation of the Stephen King novel, it's largely a failure. On the other hand, as an example of directorial bravada and as a study of madness and unreliable narrator, it's a brilliant success. And so, yeah. Is it even it's a ghost story? I first off, I don't find it scary. I find it interesting. Like, I don't even find it much of like if anything, I'd say it's a thriller that has like a paranormal intrigue to it. Like clearly you can't take away okay. So to answer your question, yes, haunted house. It would have, like, in that vein, it has to be, because you can't separate the paranormal. There's the girl in the bathtub. There's the ghost of the little girl. Like, it's clearly.
Hey,
go ahead.
Don't forget about the ghost of the furry giving head to the other guy.
Oh, that's right. I think the version I saw doesn't have that in it.
Really? Where she's going up and she's in the crew section of the hotel.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking
this...
about. It's like some bear creature or something like that giving a blowjob.
And then, yeah.
Either that or it's so quick that I don't remember seeing it, but I know the scene you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you don't see the blowjob thing for very long. Even like my son, because I totally forgot about what it was, right? I just literally, like, because I don't watch this film very often at all. I think this has only been like the third time I've ever seen it.
Yeah,
I just remembered her going up the stairs and the two technical ghosts just like staring at her in the room, right? But I literally forgot that it's the bear, like, on his knees, and then he gets up and looks, and then the other guy comes off the bed.
That's right.
My son's like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "Yeah, ghosts."
So, what's your like me? I haven't watched it a lot, and I think actually until we were going to do it for this show, I probably hadn't even watched it all the way through in 10, 15, 20 years. So now it's almost like watching it with fresh eyes. What was your first initial take on the film, seeing it again with those fresh eyes as an adult?
It is a film to be seen. Just the choices made, right, in this film, like starting off with the helicopter shot, right, following
that's
the car.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That establishing tracking shot is just phenomenal.
And that's the thing with the score, right? It's literally, especially when you're going in, like, I could imagine what it was like going into the theater in the 80s when this first came out, and you're seeing The Shining. You know, it's technically supposed to be an adaptation of a Stephen King book, right? So you know you're going horror, and then you're kind of seeing that tracking established each thought, and you're just like literally thinking with the score that it's the ghosts of the Overlook just like already like following this guy, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I will say, like, there's a lot of fucking windows in this hotel. Like, there's a lot of fucking windows, which I know there's people who probably have essays and theses on them that a bunch of these windows do not make any sense structurally.
Did you watch Room 237, the documentary?
Yeah, it's an amazing documentary, especially if you're gonna watch this film. I literally would recommend watching the documentary first.
Here, give everybody just a quick summary of what that documentary is, just for anybody who hasn't seen the 237 documentary about The Shining. Scott, give us a quick summary.
It's different. Would you say thesis or speculations about
interpretations or theories on the deeper meaning of The Shining?
Yes, whether or not Kubrick, they will, and to be honest, it's like the YouTube rabbit hole right now for, anti-vaxxers. Whatever you want to find, you will find, right? So whether or not the moon landing was fake and filmed by Kubrick, they are going to give you 30 minutes of scenes and cuts explaining how he put that into The Shining, saying that the lunar landing in the 60s did not really happen.
Or if it has to do with minotaurs or whatever kind of crazy nonsense. It's an entire documentary of confirmation bias is what it is.
Or the other one was Native American, right? Like taking over Native American, because some of the food and the salt scattered in the hotel was a Native American, and it just became prominent. And then the one that they discuss, which is amazing, is the fact that you can watch this movie forwards and backwards, and if you play it at the same time, how the scenes technically interact with each other to show like a whole 100% different meaning of this film.
Yeah, and if you smoke a piece of hash off the Brick in the Wall Pink Floyd album every minute for 100 minutes or whatever the weird rules are, you see weird stuff. And if you play this backwards and you watch The Wizard of Oz, they match up too. People can find, like you said, people can find fucking patterns if they really, really want to find them. The last thing I'd say about that documentary is I remember the whole thing about like, well, and I mean, this hotel, like this set of windows shouldn't be here. And I'm like, have you fucking people now clearly have never made a movie before? Typically you build a set and then you make that fucking set work for you because that's what you've got. Like, so if you remember our conversation about the Goodfellas, that tracking shot on the Steadicam when they go into the Copacabana, if you really follow it around, he basically just goes around in a big circle. But most people aren't sitting there going frame by frame by frame, especially in the movie theater, to figure that out. It's just they needed more time for him to walk through the kitchen. So they just were like, we have this space, so let's just like move you around a bit. It was not done like that because like they're trying to trick you. They are trying to trick you with movie magic. There's no underlying like secrets that are being revealed by the fact that like these windows are here and they really wouldn't be. It's like because they had a fucking set that they built in a studio and that's what they had, and that's the limited space they had to work with. So
yeah, and that was the thing, like in terms of my discussion in terms of the windows, like because at first I thought I know it was filmed on set, like they built it, but it's actually an actual hotel as well, where all the establishing shots and everything like that were taking place.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I actually thought at the beginning, when they're just walking through, they probably had like a little bit of time inside the actual hotel, right? And then, yeah, it's just like massive window after massive window. I'm like, there's no way this is the actual hotel, because I'm like, this part would just literally fall out off the frame.
Yeah, I mean, this I'm in this. So first off, like, did you like the film? Let's just have that conversation. Did you like it? Do you enjoy it?
I do enjoy it. Like, and it's not one that I would like, it's not a film that I revisit all the time, right? But I think it is in terms of cinematography, and just in terms of, I think, pacing and also choices made. It's one to watch because you are in awe of it.
You're in awe of just like the scope of the film. And again, this is like being made in the late 70s because it comes out in 1980. Like, I just want to talk about, so Stanley Kubrick, he's got 12 Oscar nods. He's got one win for 2001 in Space Odyssey. So 2001 in the Space Odyssey, if you haven't seen it, go watch it because it's made in like the late 60s. And it's fucking mind-blowing what this guy was doing in the late 60s. So like for The Shining, the Steadicam had come out like a couple years earlier. It had been used like in Rocky and like the training sequence and a couple other films. But he actually had the inventor, I don't have his name in front of me, but the inventor of the Steadicam was on set with Kubrick. And they were basically just like ramping up the use of Steadicam, like those shots where you're following him on his little big wheel all through it. But even when I was rewatching it, there's tons of scenes where you just realize how fluid that camera is, and it's just moving around. You're following Shelley Duvall and stuff, and I'm like, man, this like a massive amount of this film was shot on Steadicam. And we watch movies like The Shining now, And if you don't take that pause and be like, okay, wait, this is 1980, because all this technology, we have it all the time, green screens and CGI and stuff like that. But when you remember what you could do and what this director was doing, like for his film Barry Lyndon, and I don't know, maybe this is where the whole NASA and him shooting the NASA thing comes about, but when he shot Barry Lyndon, he took lenses that were developed for the moon landing and used them on his film because he wanted to shoot with practical lighting. So it's like a period piece. There's a lot of scenery where all the night shots he wanted to shoot with candlelight, just like they would have had at the time. So we needed lenses that could handle like low level lighting. Like he was like Christopher Nolan, you know, for his generation. You know what I mean? Like reinventing technology is what I mean.
Fuck, we went how long into this podcast without you fucking
man, I'm
addressing
like 5 fucking directors in this, and you're already picking on me. I could like just like read a list of directors and be like, oh, there you go, talking about Kurosawa again.
Well, you don't really talk about Kurosawa very much, but I was gonna say Hitchcock. I'm like, okay, I'm like, they were contemporaries, give or take, right? Like they overlapped a little bit in terms of filming, Hitchcock and Kubrick, so I can see that. Kubrick and Spielberg I could see, but you know, you still like in 2 seconds later, if I didn't stop you would have been like, you know, in Reservoir Dogs, one tracking shot is actually a homage to this. But no, what I was going to say is, I think in terms of what you're saying, contemporary, I'll say, have you watched the Netflix series by Mike Flanagan, The Haunting of Hill House, right?
No.
Okay.
Come on, man. You know, I don't watch horror stuff. You know this. You literally know this.
I would recommend it because to me, like obviously Flanagan ended up directing Doctor Sleep, which is a sequel to this and the book, which I still haven't watched it yet. I've read the book. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my queue to list, especially now after this, rewatching the Shining to see how it was done, right? How he did. But in that show, they also did a lot of medium to wide shots. And while the main characters would be walking, you would see the spirits of that house in the background or to the side or hiding kind of thing, right? And like watching this film in the 80s, even though you know the ghosts are there, right? I found myself, because of how wide the shots were, scanning in terms of the scenes to see if there is any ghosts.
It was almost forcing you to be like, why is this shot so big? Like what's gonna come? What's gonna get me?
Yeah, but like you notice a couple of different things, which isn't much, right? Like you know, a piece of furniture that was in one scene in that set is now missing when they go back to that
I
set.
Still think that shit to me is all just continuity errors. It's that things get filmed on different days and then fucking stuff gets moved, and it's not witchcraft and it's not conspiracy theory. It's just fucking continuity.
No, I'm not saying conspiracy theory or continuity. I'm just saying if it's a deliberate choice, saying like, you know, because it is technically supposed to be a haunted house, and in reality, all the supernatural stuff doesn't happen till the last 40 minutes of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a running time. The one I watched was like 2 hours and 26 minutes. So yeah, probably at least in the last hour at best. Yeah, because most of it is just like chilling out, driving up there, hanging out, eating eggs.
You have your days of the week, and then you just have his slow little like descent of the cabin fever, and then all of a sudden he goes into that room, and now the supernatural shit starts happening, right? In terms of supernatural, I mean like the ghosts, not the shitting.
And by ghosts, can we talk about like the full frontal nudity with the like late 70s Bush in this film? I was like, whoa! I'm like, that lady is like all hair down there, and we're seeing it all laid out there. You know what I mean?
A plane to Brazil cost a lot back then. They didn't have the Brazilian, but hey, it's the style, right? But yeah, like I think it's in terms of film, yeah, I would say where would you put it in terms of horror, right? Like, would you?
I told you, I think it's more of a
put
thriller. I think it's more of like a thriller with some like paranormal stuff, because you can't tease that out, but it doesn't feel horror-y to me. It's more like you could actually take out like the ghost stuff, totally take out all the ghost stuff, and just have Jack Nicholson start to lose his shit. First off, his character also in the movie is a fucking asshole.
That is quite a story.
Like, problematic right from the beginning. Like, even without Ghost, he's a motherfucker to his wife and kids. So
don't be so grouchy.
I'm not being grouchy. I just want to finish my work.
You don't even need Ghost for this guy to be a fucking asshole, right? So
yeah, well, that's why King hates this film, right? Because technically in the book, have you read the book?
I have not, but I've read some of the comments that Stephen King has made about this film.
So no, I have the book. In the book, you know, and it's a personal, from my understanding, this is written while he was trying to recover from alcohol and drug addiction as well, right? After having his kids. But, you know, in the book, the character of Jack is somebody that does have his demons, but, you know, cares about his family, and he's trying his hardest to do right by them. And then slowly that hotel is what turns him crazy. But by the end of the book, he is the one that sacrifices himself to save his family, right? And ends up blowing up the hotel. But yeah, in the film, there is no redeeming arc for the character of Jack. He starts off like a crazy guy reading, just from the beginning. Yeah, he's even in that interview, he's off-putting, right? Yeah. And then by the end, he, you know, freezes to death. He doesn't have any kind of character arc that redeems him. He's technically at home in the hotel by the end of it. He's where he belonged, right? So
100%.
That's one of the reasons.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a difference between like a 1,000-page, I don't know, Stephen King writes some pretty thick books. Sometimes you can just take like a creative choice to be like, I've got, you know, 2.5 hours. I've got to tell a whole story here. So sometimes you just start with some archetypes and you like work off of it, right? I know Stephen King also didn't like the fact that Shelley Duvall's character was very weak. But clearly that's what Kubrick was trying to do. He was trying to show like kind of like, you know, misogyny and patriarch, and like the vulnerability of Shelley Duvall's character. She was actually nominated for a Razzie for her role in this film. Her acting was pretty fucking bad, considering how tight a leash Kubrick kept, and that might have actually been the problem, is that he over controlled her as an actor. And there was definitely parts like where the running with the knife, I was like I was like, this is fucking horrible.
And she was going like this.
Yeah. So I mean, I would suggest everybody should watch this film. If you're interested in film, you have to watch this film. Like, this beautifully shot film. It's really well edited by Ray Lovejoy, who has he's Oscar nominated. He worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey. He actually got his Oscar nod, I believe, for Aliens. He did Batman. He died, unfortunately, in 2001 at 62. Cinematography is great. The editing is great. Jack Nicholson is like a maniac in this right from the beginning. And I did read something that like Stephen King didn't like him because Jack Nicholson already, because of his work on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Stephen King's like, oh, they're going to be like, the guy's fucking crazy. He looks crazy. He acts crazy. He's typecast as crazy. So you're never, like you're talking about, he's not starting somewhere and getting somewhere. He's starting there and ending there, right? But like you said, he's just sitting in a chair and like looking at you and being like, fucking crazy eyebrows and shit. Like, I think he's fantastic in this film. He does a great job. And the boy, I don't have the actor's name because he basically like retired.
Danny Lloyd.
Yeah, he did great too. Like, I mean, he did a really good job. I know they told him he was in a drama, not in a horror film, which maybe allowed him to like kind of just do the acting component, but he did a really good job, like with his line delivery and like being in his scene and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, my favorite shots are all the stuff with the Steadicam, and the color, like the use of color, like the green bathroom or red walls in the bathroom, like the green bathroom where the woman comes out of the bathtub, and then like the red walls where Jack Nicholson's getting cleaned up. Great color blocking, great movement of the camera. It is definitely a masterclass in filmmaking as an art form for sure.
Yeah, I think also editing wise, I enjoyed, and like even when you have like the scene where you see the twins and they're like come play with us, Danny, and then they're like forever, and then it's the fast little edit to them dead.
Yes,
there, and then
the quick
and then back to them. Yeah, like I think that worked very well with this film, and in terms of like Jack's Jack though, right?
Yeah,
like
Jack's back.
And that's the thing. I won't lie. It's like him not filming, like not being in any new films.
Yeah, that's
it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, I think, but the one thing I appreciate Jack Nicholson for is that unlike Mr. Robert De Niro, who is just turning out fucking whatever they give him $50 million for, is Jack Nicholson seems to generally care about like the craft and his legacy. Like he's done good work. Jack Nicholson has 9 Oscar nods, 3 wins. I think as of right now, he is the most nominated male actor, like in the history of the Oscars or something like that. So he has definitely taken a step back because he either doesn't like scripts or he doesn't feel like he can deliver a performance. And that's why we can have a conversation where we're like, man, I kind of wish Jack Nicholson was in a film. Where like De Niro, half the time I'm like, really? You're a fucking Oscar winner and you're doing this shit? The fuck, dude?
Yeah, but I think if I'm not mistaken, like Nicholson never actually announced his retirement. I thought it was
that's only something Daniel Day-Lewis does every 3 years is announce his retirement.
No, I'm gonna fucking Sean Connery announced his retirement after that fucking League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But what I was gonna say is I thought after his last film, whichever one it was, that he was having so much problems remembering the lines, and that's why he was like, I don't want to do it anymore, because it was more work for him to try to, not more work, but it
was harder to learn his scripts, memory loss. Like that. Yeah,
exactly. And he was like, okay, he took that as kind of the sign, right? Like, I'm kind of out of it, and that's it, right?
Sure.
Sure. Because I actually do my research. You're just like,
you did do your research. Yeah, man, I think this is a great film. Definitely check it out. The other thing on editing, the use of dissolving back and forth between like different scenes. It is a masterclass in filmmaking. It's entertaining. It's not crazy scary though. Like, so if you're going into this thinking it's crazy scary, I mean, if I'm wrong, you can yell at Scott.
Oh no, what I was gonna yell at Scott, fuck you. What I was gonna say is, it like maybe this was scary for the 80s, right? It's the same thing like people walked out of Psycho because they thought it was so scary.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right? So it's the same thing. Maybe if we watch The Exorcist, which we never will.
Yeah, but think about it.
It won't be scary.
Hold on. So John Carpenter's Halloween comes out in 1978. That's scary. I would say that John Carpenter's Halloween is scarier than definitely in the jump scare category than The Shining. And even like Black Christmas, which comes out in 1976? Something like that.
But those are slashers.
Yeah, but they're still scary. All right, but so you're saying
what
about the movie that we don't talk about because it's so fucking scary? That came out in what, 76, 77?
The Exorcist, yeah.
Yeah, the E word. So you can't be like, oh, it's the 80s. Now this is like this is scary.
But no. What I'm saying is, maybe if you watch that film now, you're like, it's not fucking scary.
I'm not watching that. I'm not doing that experiment. So fuck you.
No, but do you know what's interesting talking about that film? Do you know that Kubrick was up to actually direct that film?
Really?
And then he didn't get it because he wanted a producer credit on it.
Oh, and they said,
they didn't want to give it to. So then he got this one instead. So he went after this one instead.
That's crazy. I'm trying to think what a Stanley Kubrick. You're talking the Stanley Kubrick, The Exorcist. That would have been kind of cool, actually. The camera work would have been better, but I mean, I wonder if it would have been as scary because some of the stuff they did in The Exorcist was fucking groundbreaking at the time, right? Like for horror. Anyway, that's all for me. Scott, if you got anything else, take us out of here.
And that is our rant for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. If you're looking to get a hold of us, please go to our website at howdyoulikethatmovie.com. All our social media links are there, and you can email us as well.
I don't know. What's your favorite Jack Nicholson movie?
I do like Wolf with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, yeah. Going old school.
Chinatown
is good. I mean, I really like him in A Few Good Men as the commander or whatever. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I actually really like As Good as It Gets.
I'm actually surprised you didn't say Mars Attacks because that's a Tim Burton
I
film.
totally forgot about Mars Attacks. And that's Tim Burton. It's because you've taken away like you've burned into my psyche that there's certain directors I'm not allowed to talk about. So even when I wheel out other ones, you're like, oh, fuck man, you gotta talk about that director. It's like, fuck man, Christopher Nolan reinvents stuff. Stanley Kubrick reinvents stuff. There's like a very clear connection between those two directors.
If you say so.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.